No matter how impressive the reconstructions by scientists and the fossilized remains of ancient animals may be, the appearance of most of them still remains a mystery to us. However, from time to time, almost perfectly preserved bodies of ancient creatures are discovered, thanks to the fact that thousands of years ago they fell beneath the ice or ended up in another preserving environment. We will showcase the most impressive such finds that lift the veil of mystery over the animal world of ancient Earth. In the northwest of Canada, people discovered what are likely the oldest preserved remains of a wolf. The cold turned this young pup into a natural mummy and preserved his body remarkably well, despite the fact that more than 57,000 years have passed since the animal's death. The little one apparently left this world quite tragically. Its mother made a den in a cave, but the entrance unexpectedly collapsed, leaving the pup almost without oxygen. The remains of the pup were preserved exceptionally well. Scientists were able to learn a great deal about its subspecies not only from the condition of the skeleton, but also from the animal's skin, fur, and teeth. In the mid-20th century, due to deforestation in Siberia, the world's largest thermokarst crater formed. The trees could no longer hold the ground, which subsided and exposed layers of ancient permafrost. Many animals from different eras were found in these layers, but scientists were especially intrigued by the remains of a prehistoric horsefoal. This series of then wild ungulates roamed the frozen tundra in search of food. Horses of that era were significantly smaller than modern ones, but were hardy and apparently had much thicker and longer fur. The foal drowned before it even reached a month old. This tragedy occurred about 42,000 years ago, but the permafrost preserved the foal's body so well that even its blood remained. Usually, even in the best preserved ancient bodies, the blood coagulates, leaving only powdery residues. But after thawing the foal, researchers were able to extract liquid blood, which was an incredible stroke of luck. Thanks to this, scientists can learn a great deal not only about the foal's lifestyle, but also about its environment. Mammoths lived in regions with extremely harsh, cold climates. Thanks to this, many of their remains have survived, but in 2010, perhaps the best preserved mammoth body was discovered. The mammoth was named Yucca after the Siberian village near where it was found. It froze and was preserved in ice around 39,000 years ago. It was a young individual, estimated to be under 10 years old. Not only the skeleton, but also soft tissues were preserved. Even the trunk of the young mammoth remained relatively intact, as well as its skin and fur. Thanks to this, scientists learned that life for young mammoths was tough. Yucca's skin had many scars, possibly left by failed attempts at hunting by various predators. Perhaps some of the scars were made by spears and arrows of ancient humans? Yucca was studied for years, revealing much new information about mammoth life and physiology. And in 2019, scientists working on Yucca's remains announced they had managed to extract nearly intact cells from the ancient body. This might one day allow a living mammoth to be grown based on a modern elephant embryo. A similar technology already exists. For instance, genes of the ancient dire wolf were added to the structure of a modern wolf, thus creating a hybrid. Would you like to see a living mammoth hybrid? There is still no precise data on when exactly the first dogs were domesticated. It was previously believed that in Europe this happened quite early, around 17 or even 20,000 years ago, while in Asia dogs were domesticated later, no earlier than 10,000 years ago. However, in 2011, in the ice of eastern Siberia, the remains of a so-called wolf dog pup were found, an animal that combined features of both wolf and dog, acting as a transitional link between them. Nearby human burials were discovered, suggesting that it might have been a pet. But the most important detail is the age. The pup likely played with its owner about 12,500 years ago. It's quite possible that humans began domesticating dogs much earlier than we think. Some scientists even speak of 40,000 years of friendship. But physical changes began to appear much later, so early dogs were virtually indistinguishable from wolves. The woolly rhinoceros was one of the giants of the Ice Age, which about 40,000 years ago inhabited a vast range from Britain to the northeast coast of Asia. Despite this, the remains of this animal are found much less frequency than those of mammoths. So when remains were discovered in the lower reaches of the Kolyma River in Siberia, it caused a sensation in the scientific world. This was perhaps the best preserved woolly rhinoceros body ever found. The permafrost preserved even the animal's skin and fur. It is still unknown why this species went extinct, but the remarkably well-preserved body allowed scientists to develop a plausible hypothesis. Most likely, the limited mobility of these squat giants due to their short limbs played a role. With climate change, it became increasingly difficult for them to find food. Moreover, although their massive horns and strength allowed them to fend off predators, woolly rhinos, unlike mammoths, apparently did not form groups. Even such a powerful beast finds it hard to survive alone against a saber-toothed hunter or ancient wolf. Speaking of predators, in the permafrost of Siberia, 2 young cave lions were found. It was previously believed that they were from the same litter, but precise analysis revealed a huge time gap between them. The 2 cubs lived and died in approximately the same place, but 18,000 years apart. Today, lions live only in Africa and a single protected forest in India. But that wasn't always the case. Once, these predatory cats, which originated in Africa, were such successful hunters that they evolved into several species and spread across nearly all of Asia. Moreover, they even populated North America via a land bridge. Cave lions went extinct only about 10,000 years ago, in the era of the first cities. One of the lion cubs found in the Siberian permafrost was especially astonishing. Despite being about 28,000 years old, it was preserved so well that scientists even found its whiskers and pigmentation on its face. Moreover, its internal organs were in as good condition as possible given the circumstances of the find. The fur was perfectly preserved, even the soft pads on the paws. Poor little lion, don't you think? Also in Siberia, but in a completely different location, another kitten was found. This one, a baby saber-toothed cat. When it ended up under the ice, it was only a few weeks old, but thanks to this unusual preservation, the kitten's body remained surprisingly intact. Scientists were able to learn a lot about the physiology and anatomy of these animals that cannot be learned from an ordinary fossil skeleton. In particular, researchers compared this saber-toothed kitten with a lion cub of about the same age. It turned out that saber-toothed cats were much more muscular, with longer and stronger necks than previously thought. The shape of the paws was also different, the pads were much rounder and larger. Most likely, thanks to this, saber-toothed cats were more comfortable on snow and didn't sink into it. It's important to note that saber-toothed cats are a completely separate branch of felines, which included several species. They are not closely related to lions, tigers, or jaguars, and had their own unique traits, and this find allowed scientists to learn a great deal about them. If the ice of Siberia and Canada hides so many discoveries, it's hard to imagine how much more may be concealed in the even older and thicker ice of Antarctica. Sometimes, the cold alone in this place is enough to mummify the remains of ancient creatures. In one of the coldest corners of the continent, scientists discovered the mummies of an entire colony of Adélie penguins that are over 5,000 years old. The find is also remarkable because it occurred in a very strange location. According to modern data, Adélie penguins have not been seen in that region for over 100 years of observation. The remains of the ancient colony show how the habitat range of these birds has changed. It's quite possible they left some regions of Antarctica and moved to others precisely because of such mass losses, when entire groups of birds perished from the cold. When we talk about ancient creatures found in ice, we usually mean their remains. But what if we told you that some creatures were found deep in the ice, having spent about 46,000 years there, and after thawing, they were still alive? What kind of monster could survive that? In reality, there's nothing to fear because the simpler an organism is, the easier it is for it to endure extreme conditions. The creatures that were frozen for tens of thousands of years but didn't die and seemingly traveled through time are nematode worms. They are microscopic, fairly simple, and therefore incredibly resilient. These worms are still widespread on the planet today, which is not surprising given their tenacity. But still, knowing that such creatures can freeze in ice, remain there for tens of thousands of years, and then thaw out and go on with their business as if nothing happened, it's kind of creepy, isn't it? Over thousands of years, the climate has changed significantly, affecting the habitat range of most animals. However, they don't have weather forecasts, so climate changes often come as an unpleasant surprise for some of them. For example, in Alaska, researchers accidentally discovered the remains of an ancient bison. Today, a species known as the wood bison lives in this region. It went extinct several centuries ago, but was reintroduced to Alaska by humans through a population restoration program. However, the bison found in the ice belonged to a completely different branch of these animals. It was a giant steppe bison that lived here during the Pleistocene, the time when glaciers advanced from the Arctic and gradually covered the lands of present-day Canada and the USA. As glaciers expanded, they pulled moisture out of the air, so the climate during the Ice Age was drier. Because of this, forests gave way to steppes, meaning Alaska was mostly flatland at that time. Thanks to this, steppe bison not only had massive bodies, rivaling wood bison, but also sported huge horns. This weapon was necessary to fight off saber-toothed lions, cave bears, and giant wolves. Unfortunately, due to climate change, steppe bison went extinct. Sometimes, discoveries in the ice can seriously confuse researchers. In 2020, due to glacier melt, scientists found the remains of a predator they initially believed to be an ancient cave bear. However, after detailed structural analysis and lab measurements, it turned out to be an ordinary brown bear, just a very ancient one. The bear died about 3,500 years ago. It turned out to be a young female a little over 2 years old. She hadn't yet reached her full strength, but already stood as tall as an adult human when on her hind legs. Scientists were stunned to learn the cause of death. It turned out she had died in a fight from a crushing blow to the back. It was likely inflicted by a more mature and experienced bear during a struggle for food. Then again, who knows? Maybe she was defeated by a more mysterious ancient creature. Many different ancient creatures have been found in the ice, but perhaps the most sensational discovery was an ancient human. Scientists name him Otzi, a natural human mummy dated to the Chalcolithic era or the Copper Age. He was found frozen in the Alps, making him one of the most important archaeological finds in Europe, providing unique data on prehistoric life. He was discovered in the Alps by accident, by ordinary tourists. This happened in 1991 on the border of Austria and Italy. Otzi became a real breakthrough in archaeology. Studies showed he had lived more than 5,000 years ago. Moreover, not only his body was found, but also his personal belongings, which revealed a lot about his life. Otzi, it seems, was a wandering merchant who carried light and small but valuable goods over great distances. Ever heard the myth that ancient people rarely lived past 30? Otzi is another refutation of that. He was about 45 years old at the time of death and very strong. Apparently, Otzi's final hours were full of action. Scientists discovered fresh wounds and signs of a fight. Likely, Otzi was crossing the mountains when he was attacked by enemies, bandits, or members of a hostile tribe. Our hero fought bravely and managed to fend them off despite a non-lethal wound. However, there were too many enemies and Otzi had to flee. During his escape, he fell beneath the ice. Being a traveling merchant, he suffered from various diseases. The condition of his lungs suggested he often sat by fires without proper ventilation, and he also had arthritis and even Lyme disease. Additionally, over 60 tattoos were found on his body. Many of them were located near painful joints, indicating the use of acupuncture and ritual practices for pain relief. Otzi was equipped like a special forces soldier of his era. Along with sturdy clothing, he had a flint knife, a copper axe, a bow, arrows, a fire starting kit, and birch bark and wooden containers with medicinal mushrooms. Otzi likely spent most of his life traveling with this set of items, which suggests that people thousands of years ago were far more advanced than many assume. The icy trap that can kill a living creature in seconds also preserves it for millennia. It might seem like such traps only existed during the Ice Age, but that's not the case. Even today, despite global warming, there are still cases where nearly intact bodies are found in the ice. One of the most chilling of these occurred in Norway. Tourists spotted a fox standing motionless on the shore, but as they got closer, they realized their mistake. Only the top of its back was sticking out of the ice, the rest of the body was frozen solid. Likely, the fox was scavenging along the shore when a wave hit it, instantly knocking it out with hypothermia and eventually killing it. Its body remained trapped in the ice. This isn't a unique case. In Germany, during winter, the body of a fox was found in the frozen Danube River. It likely tried to cross the ice, but a sudden warm spell caused it to fall through. After drowning, the fox's body froze into the ice, and subsequent deep frosts perfectly preserved it. Locals spotted it at the surface and tried to extract it. They sawed out a whole block of ice with a power saw. Snow can also become a dangerous trap. One day, a snowboarder named Raphael was descending on a mountain on his birthday. That day turned into a celebration for another creature, a young horse, which he accidentally discovered along the way. It turned out the horse had gotten lost and wandered into deep snow, from which it could no longer escape. Exhausted, it was on the verge of freezing, but Raphael saved it. He filmed the long process of digging a path for the freezing but still alive and healthy animal. When Raphael found the owners of the animal, they said the horse had gone missing in the mountains 4 days earlier. Not everyone is so lucky. There was a cow that froze and turned into an ice statue while walking. This happened in Kazakhstan, a country with a harsh continental climate. Hot summers alternate with extremely cold winters. The night the cow got lost was particularly freezing, so without shelter, it froze, even with minimal precipitation. Sometimes ice can trap and seemingly freeze in time an entire scene. For example, in the USA, 2 fish were found frozen in ice. The most shocking part, they were fighting. A huge pike had caught a perch and was halfway through swallowing it when the ice froze its body. Then again, perhaps the predator failed to handle the catch and froze afterward. What do you think? In Alaska, a similar but even more tragic scene was discovered. 2 moose almost entirely frozen in ice. They were forever frozen mid-battle with only the tips of their antlers sticking out of the ice. These moose had picked the wrong spot for their duel. Competing for females, the mighty males clashed antlers, as is typical for the species, but when they locked antlers, they couldn't disengage and, likely in a panic, wandered into thin ice. Either they fell through or got stuck in shallow water, and then a wave covered them, and both animals froze. Are there large creatures that can survive being frozen? As it turns out, yes. This phenomenon is regularly observed, for example, in a nature park in North Carolina, where alligators live. Like other reptiles, they are cold-blooded creatures that cannot regulate their body temperature on their own. The climate in this state is generally warm, so alligators are comfortable for most of the year. But what about during cold winter days? Alligators don't just hibernate during this period, they freeze into the ice. They deliberately leave only their nostrils above the surface so they aren't afraid of suffocating. Their bodies are completely frozen into the ice, but when warmth returns, the ice melts and the alligators thaw out and wake up. Of course, they can't survive truly severe or prolonged frosts, but staying frozen for a while is no problem. In fact, it's even a decent shelter. Will a dinosaur's body ever be found in the ice? Of course, we're not talking about a dinosaur surviving millions of years in a frozen prison and waking up after thawing. That's the stuff of cheesy horror movies. It's now known that these creatures were warm-blooded. This means some of them could have lived in fairly cold climates, especially feather-covered species. However, today, such ancient reptiles are mostly found as fragmentary fossils. Very rarely is a full skeleton found, let alone body parts. One such exception is a dinosaur that drowned and was naturally mummified in a saline environment. Scientists were able to study not only its skeleton, but also its skin and the structure of many tissues. Even a spotted pattern of this ancient monster can partially be discerned. One can only wonder what other treasures of the past are hidden in the ice and oceans. Body body of a dinosaur that drowned millions of years ago and was naturally mummified in a salty environment would be a true treasure for scientists. Moreover, sometimes fossils include not only the remains of ancient creatures, but even their eggs. For example, in Brazil in 2015, more than 200 fossilized pterosaur eggs were discovered, flying relatives of dinosaurs that soared through ancient skies on their membranous wings millions of years ago. It's not possible to extract genetic material from them, but who knows? Maybe one day scientists will find dinosaur eggs that will allow that, too.
And our episode has come to an end, and we hope that you enjoyed watching this video. We look forward to your questions and comments. Thank you for always being with us.